Hi everyone, this is Todd Stewart and I'm with Kyle Livingood, and we're going to try to provide some professional development for you in order to get ready for our next generation assessments. End of year assessments start February 16th. Hopefully you are aware of that. And the first part that we're going to do is we're going to just give you a real brief overview and history of where we've been and where we are, how did we got to today. Last year you might recall that we did some pilot testing. We used two different vendors to do that pilot testing. One is called PARC, and PARC deals with math and language arts. And the other vendor was called AIR, and that vendor worked with science and social studies. Last year we tested probably about 2,100 kids, and around 43 different staff members participated, and it went really well. We're glad that we did it, and AIR stayed very similar to what the pilot looked like. However, PARC changed a lot, and that's why we're going to be providing you a lot of professional development over the next few minutes here. So the next thing that you want to make sure that you are aware of is what your testing schedule is. Each one of your buildings has a testing coordinator, and usually those are your school counselors, and they have the testing schedule. They've worked with you and they've probably already shared that, so make sure that you have that. Also, you're going to be seeing in an email a number of links and other videos that will help you get kids prepared for the next generation assessments. They'll provide links to practice tests and other resources that you can use with them. We've shared these back in October, and we're going to share them with you again in case you need them again. Okay, so that's the history of the PARC and AIR pilot assessments that we did last year. Next thing I want to share with you are some step-by-step things in which will prepare you for your actual testing day. For AIR right now, the only thing that is out are the manuals. We didn't want to hold up your training video for waiting for the scripts because we do not know when they're going to come out. Obviously, they'll be out before the test sessions, and they will be placed in a Google Doc, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But right now, the only thing that is out are the manuals for the AIR. But for the testing day itself, the things that you're going to want to have are, and as you can follow my cursor here, you're going to want to have login information for the students, which will include their SSID numbers and their name. I'll show you how to get their SSID numbers here in just a second. You're going to want to have your login information for your AIR account through Tide. You'll be receiving an email here in the next week or two in which you will need to set up that account. Once you receive that email, you're going to have only, I believe it's 24 hours actually to set up that account. So make sure that when you're checking your emails and you see something from Tide or AIR that you click on it and follow the directions to set up your account. It should only take you just a second. Also on testing day, you want to make sure that you have an emergency contact. It's a handout. It's located in the email that I referenced earlier. It's also in our staff testing document Google file, which I'll show you here in just a second. You want to make sure you have your scripts, which will be in the Google Doc. You won't need scratch paper because you're not taking a math test, you're taking a science and social studies test. And you'll need headphones for your students. So let me show you real quick where you're going to find your student ID numbers, and I'll probably show you this a couple of times. When you're in the staff testing document file, you'll click on AIR PBA, and you'll see that there's a folder called Student SSID Information. You'll click on that, and you'll see that I've uploaded Excel spreadsheets for each one of the buildings. You would click on your building, and you can download it or sort it here in Google Docs so that by the teacher name, and then that way you will have your students and you'll see all the state student identification numbers here on the far left hand side. Just a note about these state student identification numbers, or the SSIDs. Please note that they start, the first two characters are letters. So if you see something like here on line 15, SO, that is an O, it's not a 0. Make sure that you explain that to students during our pilot time. We notice many times that students confused the O with a 0 or vice versa, and they couldn't log in. So if a student can't log in, that's the first thing that I would check, that they have placed that SSID number in correctly. Once you have this sorted for yourself, you can print it out. You can blow it up on a printer and you can cut strips out and provide it to the kids. Or if you don't think that would be good for them, you can create little note cards, rewriting the SSID numbers out carefully onto those cards for the kids. Either way is fine, but that is where you will get the SSID numbers. Also on that day, I referenced that you will want to have emergency testing contact information. Again, it's in your email that you received, but it's also here in the Google Doc. Okay, so if you're really in a jam, you can call one of these people. The other thing that you'll want to have for testing day is the list of things to have on testing day. And if you download this, either from the email that I sent you or here in the Google Docs, you'll see all the different things that we ask for you to have that day, including the login site links that are hyperlinked within this document.
Alright everyone, in this part of the video we would like to talk a little bit about how to get your students into the testing session on both Chromebooks and on the computer labs. With Chromebooks, we saw this done a couple different ways with pilot testing. You can either have your students come up one at a time or by row or table or however you have it set up in your classroom and hand the Chromebooks out to the students one at a time, or you could, before your students get there, pass the Chromebooks out onto their desks so they're sitting there waiting for them when they come in. Once the students have the Chromebooks, you want to instruct them to leave the devices shut and not open them until you instruct them to do so. Once all the students have the Chromebooks, are sitting at their desk with the lids closed and powered off, go ahead and have them open up the lids and power the devices on. Once they are powered on, you want to make sure that you have the students not log into the Chromebook using their Nordonia Google account. You want to just have them sit there. Once the login screen appears, they're not going to click on anything until you tell them to do so. Once every device is up to that point, you're going to instruct them to click on this apps button on the bottom left hand corner of the Chromebook, and in this instance we're discussing the AIR test, so they're going to click AIR Secure Test, and once they do that, the Chromebooks will go into what's called kiosk mode, and it'll launch the AIR Secure Test browser, and from there they will be able to log into the testing session. If they are using the computer labs, a little bit simpler. Once they log in using their student accounts on the computer, they're just going to go over to the Ohio Secure Browser testing icon and double click it, and that will open up the AIR Secure Test session, and they will be able to log in to start taking the tests.
Now that Kyle has shown you how to get a student to get to the login screen on both a Chromebook and a desktop if you're in the lab, I'm going to show you what it looks like on a teacher side and how to get the student to actually log in and some of the problems that you might encounter, what to do if that occurs. So first off, on the teacher side, if you remember when you did our pilots, you will log into your site. If you remember earlier in the video, I referenced that you'll be getting an email. Within 24 hours of getting that email, you need to set up your account. Remember obviously your username and password information, write it down somewhere so that you have it on testing day. Log into the site, and when you do that, you'll be prompted to select a grade and a subject PBA assessment. So you would just click on one of those boxes, whichever one's appropriate for you, and click the Start button. And once you do that, you're going to see a screen in which gives you a session ID. It'll pop up, I think, at kind of the top middle right side of your screen. But if you remember from piloting last year, it did start with yellow, then it had a series of numbers. This number, or this ID, you need to share with the kids. So either write it up on a whiteboard, project it, whatever you have available in your classroom. Because on the student side of things, when they go to sign in, this is what it's going to look like. They're going to need their first name, their student ID, their SSID, which is their student ID, and they're going to need the session ID. The session ID is the session ID that you pull up on your screen right here. Okay, they're going to need that for right here. Obviously, they'll know their first legal name, whatever's in Dazzle. But just as a reminder, if you don't have that, once you have access to the Google Doc, which I'm going to now, thankfully you won't have to go through all those different files. Once you have access to here, in order to get to the student SSID numbers, just as a reminder, you click on AIR PBA, student SSID information, and then select your school. Okay? And that'll give you their legal first name as well as their identification number here on the left-hand side. Reminder, the first two characters are letters. So if down here on line 15, S, that is an O, not a 0. So when students can't log in, that's the first thing that we always look for is did they put their student identification number in correctly, and hopefully that you tell them that the first two characters are letters and they'll follow that. So let's go back to, you know how to log into the site. You know now how to get to SSID numbers for the kids, and you know that the first two letters are characters. Going back to your side of the screen, once you give the session ID number, the kids put their first name and their SSID number into their screen, you're going to start to be able to hit refresh, and you'll be able to see that the approval number in this parenthesis here will gradually go up as students start to log in. What I would do and recommend is that you wait till that number equals the same number of kids that you have in your testing session in your classroom at that time, and then you approve them all at one time. And then at that point, you'll start to see a list of kids populate into your session, and you'll have a great number of them. I'm assuming at least 25 or more in most of your cases. This leads me to talk to you about if a student needs to leave the classroom. When we were talking about PARC, we didn't even suggest that you pause the test. You just let them go to the restroom. Information that we're getting about the test is that students are having plenty of time to take the test. There's more than enough time to take the test. In AIR, it's much easier to pause the test. As you can see over here, there's just a pause button for that student. If you pause it, they're going to have to then re-log in to the system, and then you can resume the test for them using the same session ID number and their SSID number and obviously their first name. But again, I would only suggest that you pause it if you know that they're going to be gone for an extended period of time. Say, for example, they have a nosebleed, and you know they're going to be gone for 10 or 15 minutes or more. But just to use the restroom, I'd let them go, ask them to do it quickly, and then come back and continue taking the test. But I will leave that up to you as to how you want to proceed. If a student would happen to lose connection, or something happens to the Chromebook, it just quits on you, don't fret, don't get too excited about it. Have the student either restart completely the Chromebook and re-log in, and make sure that you pause them first on your end, and then just have them add their information again at the login screen. Just do it all over again, and then resume them in the test. You'll be able to click resume here instead of pause, and they should be able to get back into the test. Also, just as a suggestion, if you have a Chromebook that's continually working badly for you, I would go ahead and throw it back into the charging cart and grab another one, because again, it doesn't matter which one they're on. They can obviously log in from any device. Thank everybody for participating in our training. We're sorry that it didn't work out timing wise to do it in person with everybody. Manuals came out again too late, and to reschedule all of our testing sessions that were scheduled, it would just been a nightmare. So we appreciate your patience through listening to our voices and our screencasts. Hopefully it's beneficial for you and you feel prepared going into the testing situation. Just a couple things to end. As Kyle mentioned earlier, number one thing, if something goes wrong or that you have a concern about, just stay calm. Inevitably something will go wrong, and we're prepared for that, and we have steps in place. Just stay calm, use your emergency contact lists and the references that we placed in the video. Also, make sure that as you have questions that pop up between now and the beginning of February, please be sure to reference the Google Doc that's in your email to ask questions. We'd like to keep a running record of the questions, almost have a frequently asked question and answer page for our district. Please post your question in there, and either Kyle or I will answer that as we look at it daily to see if there are any new questions. Also, I want to reference in the email one more time the Doodle link for anybody that still feels that they need to have a one-on-one or a group meeting to kind of go over something. During our in-service day, Kyle and I are going to be available on February 13th to meet with people. Click on the Doodle link and select a time to come over to the Board of Education office and to meet with Kyle and I. So again, we want to thank you for participating in our training, and we hope again that it was beneficial in preparation for next generation assessments.